Bonisile here for the next podcast, and I am coming to you live in 2026. Crazy, crazy how time is going by as you get older. It goes by real fast. But point I'm trying to make here, I guess, is Happy New Year, everybody. And yeah, I hope this one is good for you and your loved ones. And yeah, wishing you all the best in whatever it is you want. You know, maybe you get a bit better than you deserve sometimes. Um, and hopefully Arsenal do it this year. That's the other piece, I guess. I want to say I hope that Arsenal get to do it this year and win a big trophy. But today I'm going to talk about Premier League and and basically the fact that now we're at the halfway point. Arsenal has had their fixtures flipped. Aston Villa was supposed to be match week 20, and then the Bournemouth game coming up tomorrow was supposed to be because they've played Aston Villa twice. You can't play the same team twice in the first leg. So yeah, 19 games in, but we haven't played our 19th game, I guess, of the first round. Um, and that one is away to Bournemouth. But I want to take a look back at some of the games that have happened since my last recording, which was December 24th. Arsenal played Brighton, and then they played Aston Villa on the 27th and the 30th, respectively. The Gunners won both games. Both games last year, out of six, Arsenal took 1 point, draw to Brighton at home, and lost to. No, did we lose to Aston Villa last year? No, it was a draw. Arsenal were 2-0 up, and then Villa came back and made it 2-2. So they took 2 of 6 last year in these two games, and this year maximum points. And Manchester City, they played Nottingham Forest, tight win, similar to Arsenal's win against Brighton, but Arsenal's win against Brighton actually was a little easier if the emotional involvement was not there for me. Arsenal just made it hard on themselves by conceding that kind of freakish lucky bounce type of goal. And yes, they may have to count their lucky stars, I guess. That Brighton, that is, may have to count their lucky stars that they were able to score from like such low XG. I think they created on the day 0.8 XG, and Arsenal had 3 times the amount. I think they had 3 point something XG. So this was still at a time, I think a few days before or a day before the game against Brighton. They played Brighton 27th. I recorded on the 24th. I'd been talking about Arsenal's struggles offensively and how they need to do better in the opposition's defensive box, and it showed in that game. But the underlying numbers had been looking decent, and Arsenal were due to, I guess, to kind of explode on somebody. I did not expect that to be against Aston Villa, and the way they tackled the Aston Villa game was typical Arsenal in first half kind of performances. They tend to be almost like it tends to be a bit more shadow boxing like an Arsenal game in the first half. Very uncommon that Arsenal just batter teams and blow teams away by half time, it seems, under Mikel Arteta, except for maybe the season 2022-2023. That year, Arsenal did make some fast starts throughout the season. This last 2.5 years, because it's halfway through this season, Arsenal tends to be more methodical and then kind of wear you out, and then by the second half they run away with the game. Like they have the most dominant 1-0, 2-0 wins that you can find. 1-0s for Arsenal are not necessarily always squeaky bum time kind of 1-0s. And doing rewatches for the Brighton game, as much as it felt close watching it, the game was not close. Arsenal was in control. They played well on the day, and the forwards needed to have basically a good look at themselves and try to make up for that moving forward. And I hope they will continue to make up for that. 1-4 goal performance against Aston Villa is not going to be enough. And, it was a good breakout for sure. Unfortunately, Gyökeres was not one of the people who scored, but against Aston Villa, I would say the star man, there were star performances from a lot of people. Martin Odegaard being near the top for me, him and Trossard were probably the players of the match. And the returning Gabriel to the starting 11 was also another player who clearly helps Arsenal. Him and Saliba together really helps Arsenal have a strong foundation from which they can then attack, but also defend when they need to do defensive work. If there's a period in a game where the opponent is in the ascendancy, having Gabriel there is immensely helpful for this team. And Martin Zubimendi had himself a game. Even aside from the goal, he really stepped up in midfield in the absence of Declan Rice, and even involved in the Gabriel Jesus goal. He's the one who wins the ball on the left flank, drives with it, gives it to Trossard. Trossard crosses it to Gabriel Jesus. First touch, good, passes it into the net. So there were a lot of good performances in this Aston Villa game, especially on the offensive side. But it was weird to also observe that this is also the game we gave up the highest XG. And I know a lot of that XG was given up, in that last 10 minutes, that 8 minutes of extra time or additional time at the end of the game with the game at 4-0, then 4-1 later on. So I know that. So those last few chances kind of upped Aston Villa's XG. But the game was not as bad first half as it felt watching it live, and I also listened to a lot of people who I think after rewatching it will feel different about that first half performance. I think when you don't know how the game is going to end, it always feels a little bit more intense. But Arsenal played really good football in that first half without scoring. Gyökeres had a couple of decent opportunities to put one at least on target, if not in the net, with one of those headers. The second one is a bit hard, and it gets a bit too much meat on it, but makes a really good run. This is the first one from a Ngapi across. He's like literally standing still. I don't understand how he misdirects that header, but he does. And there's a lot of talk around him at the moment and his position in the starting 11. It's going to be interesting to see how Arteta navigates the center forward position. I think that's one of the questions coming out of this game. Gabriel Jesus has come in from the bench several times now, maybe 3 or 4 times, and he started the Carabao Cup game against Palace. And Kai Havertz was on the bench for the first time this game against Villa. So there's a lot of options for Arsenal to explore and to really try to see a way of giving, players rhythm and not wearing them out at the same time, right? Like, I think there may be an idea here whereby, if you want to start with, for example, Saka, Trossard, and Gyökeres for the next, I don't know, let's say a couple of weeks, and maybe they all start, and then you do a triple sub on the 65th minute, or on the 60th minute, or 70th minute. You do a triple sub where you then change both wingers and the center forward. In fact, if Havertz gets fit and Gyökeres still doesn't seem to be scoring goals, it might be interesting to see Arsenal start with Kai Havertz or Jesus with the most informed winger on the left, whether that's Trossard or whoever, and then Saka, because Saka always starts. And then you unleash a fresh Gyökeres on the 60th for the last 30 minutes of the game with new wingers. And that's your kind of like your death lineup, up front. I think that could help unlock Gyökeres because his game, at least as I see it, his game appears to be based on brute force power. It's based on his strength a lot. He's a very powerful player. But when he's playing week in, week out, and he's playing 70 minutes, 90 minutes, 70 something minutes, it seems to me that he doesn't have that advantage over the Premier League defenders that he had over defenders in Portugal. So coming in when they are tired and having him run fresh at them after they had been playing the defenders, that is, for about 60 plus minutes, 70 minutes, that might give him at least a way of building his confidence up. Now, I know Arteta doesn't do triple substitutions. That's more of an Emery thing, but it would be interesting to see that because that's now the kind of like the position that I think in the Arsenal team needs fixing. And if Rice obviously is out for a long time, we may need to find a way to fix the midfield too, because as much as Zubimendi, Merino, Odegaard is a decent enough midfield to get you through most Premier League games, I don't think you want to go against Liverpool with that midfield. It could work, but like teams that have runners that like to run through the middle are going to give you problems if you're running with that midfield. And you may need to compensate for them in other ways, which is possible. Teta is a very smart coach; he'll figure it out. But yeah, like getting Gabriel back and losing Declan Rice is a bit of a bummer. But I think the Rice, something on Rice was in the post to a degree, because he's always out there playing and he plays every minute of every game. Seldom does he get substituted. Seldom does he get a rest. And yes, he did get a rest before this injury, because there was a week of no games before, I think, Everton. And then there was, very little play time for him in the Carabao Cup. He played like maybe 5 minutes, if that. And then the next game he has to play, he plays it right back. So he had actually been rested coming up to this injury, which is kind of weird because this is what happened with Gyökeres too. When he got injured, he had been playing every 3 days, and then all of a sudden there was an opportunity for him to have a break the week leading up to the Burnley game, and then boom, in the Burnley game couldn't finish the game, came off at halftime. So there's a lot to like about Arsenal's performances in recent times, except finishing. And then against Villa, the finishing came. So I think the ability to put your chances away is going to be important for this team, because I don't think they have a guy, like a Haaland or even Van Persie type striker, like, a 20 goal, Premier League 20 goal season type striker without too many penalties. I think Gyökeres could give you 20 goals in a season. I don't know if it's going to be this season. I kind of doubt it. That is going to be this season. I thought if he gave you anything between 10 and 15 or 10 and 20, if you want to be on the kind of ambitious side, I thought he was going to get closer to 15 goals, which he might still do. And then you get a bit from Havertz, a bit from Jesus, a bit from Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, who, by the way, deserves massive praise. He is the one guy that a lot of people, when we're talking about what needs to happen in the summer, he was definitely one of the top two names for get money for him, get somebody better. Whether it's Nico Williams or another sexy winger, Rodrigo, or anyone else. This guy right now is playing like a man on a mission. He is. And he deservedly, this is like one of those very, very, very good examples of a meritocracy in sports, because Leo is and has not historically been at Arsenal one of the fan favorites to have a starting spot in the team. People kept saying, the most of the Arsenal content creators I listened to said things like, he is good from the bench, and then you give him a start, he lets you down, or then he's in that cycle, back again on the bench, and then comes on the bench and scores, or impacts a game, and then you give him a start because he's earned it, and then he lets you down. I think that might be an oversimplification of this player. I think when playing with other people who can think the game like he thinks it, because he's a very high IQ player, he is capable. He can do so many different things from the same position. He drifts into the middle, goes all the way to the right, drifts into the center forward space. He can take on, he's not the most blessed with blistering pace like a Martinelli, but he can do a defender, in a one-on-one, because he's got 2 feet. He can go outside, he can go inside, he can go strong foot, weak foot, which is not so weak for him. He plays like he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think he does. Maybe it's that little man syndrome thing, where like, he's a bit of a short king, Leo, and he's one of the elder players in the team. He's 31, I think now. So he's a senior pro, in a project that's really highly functional with some really talented young players, and he's relishing in that space. And then you bring in other players like Madueke and Eze to challenge in that front line. I think it's really raised his level up. And Ateta was saying that in his press conference today, that Trossard has been improving his levels at Arsenal every single season he's been there. And I think he's the player with the most goal contributions in 2025 for Arsenal. Currently, he sits on, let me be sure because I did look at this earlier. He's got like goal contributions. Boom, 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 boom. He's got the most goal contributions. I know he's equal with Gyökeres for goals, on 5 goals. And he's got 4 assists. So just that's in the league. If you add Champions League to that, he's got a goal in the Champions League, at least one, and he's got a goal in the EFL Cup, and maybe some assists. I think he's somewhere on track right now for at least 20, because he's in the double digits if you combine goals and assists in all comps. But for the Premier League, he has 5 goals, 4 assists. He's really doing his chances of staying in the team no harm every time he plays. I think Arteta must be really, really happy with his contributions to their cause, and Arteta might be feeling a bit smug right now that maybe he saw this coming, and when people were questioning why Trossard was given a raise, without an extension, where I think it was a smart business move by Arsenal, because you're getting the benefits of a player feeling valuable in the team, and you're not paying him near the top earners. He's not making, Saka money or Martinelli money, even though he's older than both. It's just good senior pro money in a squad so that he doesn't earn as much as Ethan and Miles. And I think that was a respectful and the right thing to do with that contract. Maybe you could have given him another year, but he has the option now. If he continues to play this well, he has the option to choose where he goes. It may not be at a club level of Arsenal, but he's definitely not going to struggle to find suitors, because He'll be 32 or something like that when his time at Arsenal comes to an end. So, I mean, I just love the way he has stood up every time the team has needed him. His availability is second to none. Since he's joined Arsenal, he's the most prolific output player since he's joined Arsenal. So, yeah, I don't know. People might be too quick to want to write his obituary again when he goes through a dry spell, but hopefully there'll be some people who remind them on days for days like these last couple of days. And his goal was a well taken goal, the third goal, and then he contributes to the fourth goal. But against Villa, he'd been good all game. This is one thing I want to finish this Trossard section on, is that people tend to paint him as a player who just gives you moments, and because that's what he tends to do in games. He drifts in and out of games. In this game against Aston Villa, he gave, I think, the most complete 90-minute performance I've ever seen from Trossard. No cap. Like, I'm not even trying to do some prisoner of the moment shit. Like, he did well against Brighton. He was cooking that makeshift defender, and he'd been playing well. Period. Regardless of who Arsenal have been playing against this last 3 to 4 months. At Villa Park, he came on after he'd been injured, played 30-something minutes as a halftime substitute, and then left the game before the game was over again. Scored the goal. At Sunderland, he scored the goal to take the lead. He just finds ways, whether it's to contribute through defensive work or an assist or a pass that leads to the final pass. And he's the one player who, at this moment, at least, who seems to be in the front line, really finding ways to find Gyökeres and set him up for success. Now, Gyökeres is not, at this point, delivering on his side of that deal. He gets good balls from Trossard. He just needs to. Even in this game, one of the headers was a Trossard cross. The first one was Nkapia cross, and another one was Trossard cross, I believe. So Arsenal sitting pretty at the top of the table is pretty decent going for them. And City dropping points at Sunderland was really surprising. But they won against Nottingham Forest. It was a tight game. And then the next game was a draw away at Sunderland on New Year's Day, which was a surprise because Sunderland have lost about 6 players or so to AFCON. I know that they're a well-coached, well-drilled team, but I was expecting City to go there the way City has been playing. I was expecting them to go there and just handle business because that's what they do. But they get Rodri back at least, and it's only 4 points behind Arsenal. So Man City will be feeling good about their chances. They're about to add Semenyo, if you believe all the ITK reporting that's been coming out of England, is that the deal for Manchester City to sign Antoine Semenyo is nearly done. I mean, it's agreed in principle, which means just a couple of formalities, and it's just making it now legal on paper, and then the guy goes medical, whatever comes first between those two things, and then he's a City player. But the coach at Raiola says he's going to play against Arsenal tomorrow, so we'll see if that happens or not. But Manchester City are going to add again because that's who they are. They make moves. Aston Villa, 11-game winning streak. It'd have to come to an end at some point. It happens to be at Arsenal. They'll be fine, Villa. They still have 6 points between them and the next team in line, Liverpool. So they'll be okay. I think they have to handle business against Nottingham Forest on Saturday and, just keep it moving. But I don't think you can fluke your way to 11 straight wins. So they're a good team. And I think they are the likeliest team to finish in the Champions League positions ahead of Spurs and Man United. They may need to do some business in the January transfer window, though, if they're not in financial fair play trouble, because when you get to those final positions, final weeks, and they are later and later on in the Europa League, which I think they will win it this year, or they'll be one of the top 3 teams, I think, who are favored to win it, in my opinion. So Villa is going to go deep in that competition, and so playing Thursday, Sunday can be tricky at the best of times, and business end of the season, that can hurt you. United, remember, still has just 1 game a week, so they will be getting better as well. I think they will do some business this winter and they'll get better. Right now, they're sitting number 6 on 30 points, yet that's the same as Chelsea. Chelsea is number 5, and Liverpool sits the 4th on 33 points. Surprisingly, drew a game at home against Leeds. Leeds have been doing quite well, actually. We'll talk about them in a bit, but Chelsea, a draw and a loss in the last 2 games. Lost to Aston Villa from actually a leading position. Right? I think they scored first in that game, Chelsea. Anyway, they lost to Villa at home, and they drew to Bournemouth. So, and then their coach has been dismissed. So I don't know what's going on with Chelsea. I don't even want to talk about it, because it just keeps changing all the time. United drew against Wolves after winning impressively against Newcastle United. I don't know, man. I don't know with Amorim. I don't know why he decided to move those pieces. Why did he not just play the same players that he played against Newcastle, unless there was an injury, right? Like, just don't move Dogu from that right wing position. I think he might have lost somebody maybe from that game, because I know Xerxes started this game. And if you need to start Xerxes, start him behind the striker and then play Cunha on the left. But he flipped it all around. He just kept moving people in different places. It was a bit too much. And I don't think that helped. But they'll be fine, United. They're going to get Ahmad and Belmore and Mazraoui, and then they'll get back De Ligt from injury and all of that, and Maguire, and they'll be okay. I think that United will be in that top 4 race for sure. They might finish 4th or 5th or 6th worst case. And then you have a couple of surprise teams at this 19-game mark. Like the fact that Everton, Brighton, Crystal Palace are only 6 points or 3 points. Sorry, they're all within like 28 points, 27 points. Fulham is on 27 points. Liverpool is 4th on 33 points. But they're not more than 10 points away from 15th place Bournemouth. The Bournemouth is 15th place, and they're on 23 points. Tottenham, 12th place, 26 points. And then you have Fulham in 11th, 27 points. Crystal Palace on 10th, 27 points. Brentford on 9th, 27 points. So, like, the congestion of this middle pack in the Premier League is really going to make it very tricky to be able to predict games, because like the strength of all teams seems to have found ways to equalize through finances and also good front office recruitment. I think there's a lot of really smart people in the world of football who are in positions at these Premier League clubs now, who help with recruitment and planning for it, scouting players before, and all of that kind of stuff. Like, all of these Premier League teams now are investing in off-field talent in massive ways. You can see this on the dugouts too. So the separation between those who used to be the haves and those who are used to be the have-nots, it's shrunk. Big time shrunk. And we see this even in like teams like Leeds and Sunderland, right? Like, Sunderland is sitting 7th, newly promoted Sunderland. they're gonna like. I don't even think they're worried about relegation at this point. I don't think they 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 came up with a plan to kind of prove what I'm saying, with plan to sustain themselves as a establish themselves and sustain themselves as a Premier League team. Sunderland is going to be in the Premier League for the next season for sure already. You can bank that, and then maybe the season after that. But Leeds deserve. I mean, they've drawn too many games, but in the last five, they haven't lost a game. 3-3 draw against Liverpool. 1-1 draw. Sorry, 1-1 win. 1-1 draw against Brentford, who are another team that's been playing really well. A win, 4-1 against Palace. 1-1 draw away at Sunderland, and then a 0-0 draw again back at Liverpool, at Anfield. So Leeds have found ways to stop shipping goals, and when they do ship, it seems like they find a reply, like in that game against Liverpool. But like concede one goal after that, concede one goal after that, concede one goal after that, clean sheet. So in the last 5 games, the last time they conceded more than one goal was the very first game of those 5 against Liverpool. So that's pretty good going for them. That gives me hope for them to find a way out of trouble, unless, of course, like a team like West Ham has money, right? They're making business already. I've seen that there's some Brazilian people through George Mendes, who also represents Nuno, that are gonna go to West Ham. So like that can be the only thing Leeds may have to worry about, is that they may have to go again in the window. They did well in the summer window, but they may have to go again in the window to try and secure their space in the Premier League. But right now, like from the beginning to week 19, I mean, I think they can be proud of what they've done, and good for them also for sticking with their manager, because Daniel Farka was under some immense pressure about maybe 6 or 7 game days away. Like, it's good for clubs sometimes to just ride the difficult period with your coach, because you just can't do that. Like just keep firing play a coach. Every club is not Chelsea. And then Nottingham Forest also, like they started really low, but like now they're hitting some poor run of results. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and now they have Villa. So Villa is going to be looking to bounce back, and Villa is at home, and you know what Villa does at home. So they're going to have to work really hard. I think Nottingham Forest will consider themselves unlucky against Man City, but that was a loss, and that's unfortunate. Like the soft factor stuff doesn't count; the results that count. And they lost to Manchester City. They lost to Everton 2-0. That one is gonna hurt them too, because Everton they don't have better players than Nottingham Forest, and they were at home. They lost to Fulham 1-0. The only win they've had in these last 5 games was a 3-0 win against Tottenham, which was deserved. And then, excuse me, they lost 3-0 to Everton. They lost 2 times to Everton in this last 5 games. One time 3-0 away, and then this last time 2-0 at home. David Moyes must have Sean Dyche's number, because 5 goals without reply in 2 games within a 5-game period. That's a tasty return if you're an Everton fan. But if you're on the Forest side of things, you've invested all that money in that squad. That's not great. Burnley and Wolves, they look to be the most in trouble to go down. Wolves look like a sure thing at this point. And if they don't go down, I don't care who wins the league or who does what. Rob Edwards should be manager of the season, even though he managed nearly half the season in the Championship. If Wolves find a way to not get relegated from this position, yeah, Rob Edwards, coach of the year. Give him all the money next summer to build the team that he wants, because this team has been horrific. Only 3 points so far, but they found a way to draw at Manchester United. But I don't know what the future holds for this team in the Premier League this season. Like, besides a lot of draws and losses, I don't know. There's one team that they're better than, given day in the Premier League. So I'm going to stop this one here. But week 19 has come and gone. Now we're in the second half of the season, and yeah, the teams now are you're starting to see who's who. Unfortunately, the January transfer window is going to open a window of time for people to change their face if they need to change their face, because now 19 games is a big enough sample to be able to see, you know. In fact, I think there should be a lock even on sacking people until week 19. But I'm sure clubs wouldn't want that, because if you want to act fast, you want to act fast. You're done with your coach, you're done. But yeah, I really, really think the Premier League has done um, a really good job of sharing money across and creating financial rules that keep teams competitive. I know Manchester City and Liverpool kind of broke our brains over the last 7, 9 years, maybe 10 years, going back to 2015, with the way they ran the league. But the way things are now, it looks like there's a cluster of teams that are very much close together in terms of ability on the field, ability on the sideline, ability to spend, and it's making the league a lot more confusing for people who have been watching a long time, because people who are watching the Premier League for over the last 30 plus years, I mean, like myself, for example, you're having to really unlearn a lot of stuff, like the whole thing around easy fixtures, right? Like, oh, that's good, that's an easy one. The like even the easy fixtures don't turn out to be so easy, because every team now has at least people who aren't mugs on the dugout who know how to set up a defensive structure. As long as you have willing players, you can stay in games in the Premier League by just denying the other team that has more talent than you opportunities to penetrate and get to your box easy. Just by doing that, you're in the game. You are in the game. Now, what separates obviously is the quality of player, and not every team can afford that, and it takes time to build a squad like that. So it's a beautiful thing to see, because yeah, it's not nice to watch football where team get games are decided 30 minutes in, or you nah, that's not cool. I don't care. I mean, I know on game day I want my team to be out of sight by halftime, and I can relax and have a couple of drinks and have some laughing time with my friends or whatever if I'm watching with friends. But it's the best league in the world for that, for me. Not necessarily for tactical separation from other teams. It just means like anybody can get gut on a given day, and that's beautiful. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here. That was a long sign off. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching the Footy Notes podcast. Please subscribe, share, like, hype, all the good things that podcasters ask. Cheers.